Tēnā koutou katoa kua tae mai nei I tēnei rā. Ki te karakia nehonga mō Nola Hanson. Tēnā koutou hoki ki ngā tangata e ero ana tātou me te awa ora. Greetings and welcome to all of you gathered here for Nola Hanson's funeral service. And also to those joining us via live stream from within Aotearoa and overseas. E te whānau pani, tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou I tēnei wā pauri. Kua hinga tō whaia. He pauri nui tēnei. Kia manu nui. Kia kaha. Haere tonu. Haere tonu. Ki te rongo I te mahana o te iwi. Greetings to Nola's family, especially to Frank at this time. It's so sad that Nola will no longer be with you, but be strong and keep going and feel the warmth of the people around you. E te whaia Nola, tā koto mai, a koe he ora ana, he tangata rongo nui, he wahine kaha, he matua mahana. Waiho mai nā taonga mō o mokopuna, tā koutou, tā koutou, tā koutou. Rest peacefully, Nola. You have been a much respected woman, a woman of strength, a warm, loving person. And so rest here in peace with us at this time. He whakatauaki, he hina ana, he tuta tete kura, ara mai anō, he tete kura. So a Maori proverb. As a fern frond falls, so another rises to take its place. And in the same way, the gifts and the graces that Nola lived out in her life will not be lost to us. Others will carry them on in their lives. Nō reira, e mea ana tātou. Haere, haere, haere Nola. Haere atu ki ngā ringa o tātou atua aroha. So we bid Nola well as we prepare to send her into the arms of our loving God. Whakapaingia ki atua ora, I ronga, I raro, I waho, I roto, I tēnei o tātou, e mini mai nei, I tēnei rā. So now we give thanks to the living God who is all around and within each one of us at this time. Amen.
Family and friends of Nola and of Frank and their whānau, a very warm welcome here today. I know that the family are grateful to all of you that have come here today to show your public expression of the love and respect you have for Nola, what Nola meant for you personally, and for the support for them as a family as they begin the difficult journey of learning to live life every day without Nola. As we begin, we do remember that there are family members that can't be here. They're live streaming, as John said, Australia and America. And so we particularly think of Rachel and Sam, and welcome, of Ben, and of Sophie and Joshua. We wished you were here, as I'm sure you wished you were here. Today, as we remember Nola, we want to celebrate her person and her life, and all that she has meant to each one of us. Thank you, John, for your mihi and for grounding us here in Aotearoa today. Nola would have loved that. Thank you for reminding us that as we must farewell Nola, whom we love, that in the pain and grief of her death is love and hope. I'm Jeff Sanders, and I'm a friend of Nola and Frank's for over 40 years. A relationship that began through Methodism, something we love. It was also my privilege a number of years ago to accept Nola's invitation to be the celebrant when today arrived. What an honour. Thank you, Frank. Over the years, we have talked about many things, the four of us. Family, mainly family. Church, a lot of church. Politics, even more than the church. We have few friends whose values and beliefs are more aligned for us. Nola and Frank are a blessing to Rosemary and me in our life. Thank you, Nola. Thank you, Frank. So, like you all, it is painful to think about living life without Nola. But because Nola's influence was so positive, it is possible to remember and celebrate her today. And I ask you to share that with me here in this place and in the days ahead. As you would imagine, Nola and Frank both knew what the other wanted at their life celebration. A life in ministry demanded nothing less. And over the last few days, Frank has busied himself to make sure that this is a fine tribute to Nola, and Nola gets what she wants. And today, Frank, that's the brief. Nola particularly talked about wanting a celebration that represented what she theologically believed. Open, liberal, and inclusive. Nola believed that for her, eternal life is to live on in the lives of those who loved her by being remembered, and I'd add by being influenced. And I certainly can say that's where we'll be today. So let's celebrate God's gift to us and the world in the life and the person of Nola Hanson. But as we begin, I want to acknowledge the contribution today of the Reverend John Roberts, who opened our service with a mihi. Reverend John Cunningham, who is from St Andrews on the Terrace, and we'll talk a little bit about that when he gets up. And organist Peter Franklin from St Andrews on the Terrace. Peter, as I said to you earlier, Nola loved your music and the ministry of your music. And I know both she would have been excited, and Frank is absolutely thrilled that you are playing here today. At the conclusion of the service, the family invite you to join with them in the hall for a time to remember Nola over refreshments. And obviously there's some rules to follow on COVID. And I can tell you Nola would have want those followed, so you better not break them. And later this afternoon, the family will be gathering in the small chapel at the Karori Cemetery for a private service. The small chapel is only 50 metres from where Nola's mother, Florence Lang, someone will remember her as Nana Lang, I do, and has her ashes interred, and where her grandmother, Nola's grandmother, Florence's mother, Elizabeth Clark, is buried. And Nola's ashes will soon join those and be interred there. So let us celebrate Nola Hanson's life today and what she means to us as we begin the grieving process, as we celebrate the life of influence. We're going to sing the first hymn, Be Still My Soul. If you know this off by heart, you better read the words, because Frank decided that theologically it wasn't correct for Nola or for him, so it's been rewritten. So you'll need the words as you sing, Be Still My Soul.
Frank, I bring with me the greetings and the sadness and the love and concern of the family at St Andrews on the Terrace. Some of them are here, but for those who are not, and we come to surround you with our love. Frank and Nola have been part of our congregation at St Andrews on the Terrace for the last 12 years, and we are going to miss Nola, her gentle smile, her words of encouragement, her presence always added something to the quality of our worship. And we look forward to welcoming you back. Let us pray. Loving God, we come here because Nola has died, and the reality of her death is here before us. So we come to surround Frank and his family with our love and our care and our presence. We come to express our grief, to listen to some great words of faith, to share memories, to give thanks, and to say goodbye. We come seeking hope and peace and love, and the gifts of strength, perspective, and courage, those things that will enable us to continue to live lovingly and creatively and generously. This is our prayer. Amen. And we join in a prayer which is in the centre section of the order of service, the Lord's Prayer paraphrased by Jim Cotter. Eternal Spirit, life giver, pain bearer, love maker, source of all that is and that shall be, Father and Mother of us all, loving God in whom is heaven. The hallowing of your name echo through the universe. The way of your justice be followed by the peoples of the world. Your heavenly will be done by all created beings. Your commonwealth of peace and freedom sustain our hope and come to earth. With the bread we need for today, feed us. In the hurts and exalt from one another, forgive us. In times of grief and testing, strengthen us. From trials too great to endure, spare us. From the grip of all that is evil, free us. For you reign in the glory and the power that is love, now and forever. Amen.
Nola had chosen 2 readings, and today they're going to be read by grandson Luke and daughter Jenny. So can I invite you up?
Oh God, you know me inside and out, through and through. Everything I do, every thought that flits through my mind, every step I take, every plan I make, every word I speak. You know even before these things happen. You know my past, you know my future. Your circumventing presence covers my every move. Your knowledge of me sometimes comforts me, sometimes frightens me, but always it is far beyond my comprehension. There is no way to escape you, no place to hide. If I ascend to the heights of joy, you are there before me. If I am plunged into the depths of despair, you are there to meet me. I could fly to the other side of our world and find you there to lead the way. I could walk into the darkest of nights only to find you there, to lighten its dismal hours. You were present at my very conception. You guided the moulding of my unformed members within the body of my mother. Nothing about me, from beginning to end, was hid from your eyes. How frightfully, fantastically wonderful it all is. May your all-knowing, everywhere present Spirit continue to search out my feelings and thoughts, deliver me from that which may hurt or destroy me, and guide me along the paths of love and truth.
If I speak in the tongues of mortals and angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, and the greatest of these is love.
Thanks, Jenny. Thank you, Luke. At this point, I just want to remind us a little bit about Nola's life journey, a bit of a biography. So Nola was brought up in Grey Lynn. She never lost the Auckland, really, did she? But it was because her whānau was here, she loved the Lower Hutt, I think. Nola was taken by her mother at a young age to the Methodist Central Mission, Sunday school and church. This began a long association with the mission, which continued through to her marriage to Frank. After attending Sunday school and then youth group, she served for many years as a Sunday school teacher at Franklin Road Sunday School, a choir member at both morning and evening services, and a pianist for the hymn sing-a-song prior to the evening service. She was always very proud of her association with the mission. On leaving Auckland Girls Grammar, she took up shorthand typing position with the State Fire Insurance and worked there until her marriage in November 1959. Eminently skilled at her work, she had the ability to work out dinner menus, etc., while taking down shorthand. It was always very efficient. After marriage, she and Frank lived in Methodist parishes in Westport for 5 years, Stoke, Nelson for 6 years, and Lower Hutt for 7 years. They lived a further 11 years in the hut while Frank served with the Methodist Education Division, and then 10 years in Auckland at the Trinity St John's College Theological College complex. They have been retired in Avalon for the past 23 years. Within the 3 parishes they served, Nola always took an active leadership part in the women's groups, including Young Marrieds and Women's Fellowship, as well as Bible study and other group work. She was always very fond of flowers and was regularly on the flower roster, hence the flowers today. She always made the parsonage a welcoming place for visitors and meetings, and proved to be very popular in her own right as a hostess and supportive of the work of the church. Nola constantly played a full part in parish life, but never felt she was just there to do what was expected of her. She doggedly fought the independence of the minister's wife. Oh, that rings true. Both within parish life and also in her example and influence during the 10 years in college. Nola was a full-time homemaker for about 13 years, but when Mark, the youngest, was 7, she returned to work part-time. From there she worked her work was varied, commencing with a number of years as secretary to the management of the Kakoli store in Wellington. This was followed by some years as secretary and administrator in the multiracial and multidisciplinary Anglican Family Centre in Lower Hutt. Then followed as a chaplain with ITIM, the Interchurch Trade and Industrial Mission, also in Lower Hutt, and sometime as secretary within the Methodist Education Division before shifting north to Auckland. On moving to Auckland, she spent 10 years as secretarial manager at the Auckland Central Mission. She found her way back. In all these tasks, she served with dedication and a sense of vocation. Her values were always to serve people and to do tasks well rather than be concerned for material rewards. She was never a clock watcher, but she tried to see her responsibilities were fulfilled as best she was able for the welfare of people. Nola was always a team person and strove for good relationships among staff and with clients. And as we know, she also had a wicked sense of humour. Thanks, Nola, for us being able to share your story today. We're now going to move to a time of family tributes, and Frank is going to begin those. I've got down Frank Part 1 and Frank Part 2. I remember the first conference I went to with Frank and Nola, and I sat next to Nola, and Ian Ramage was being inducted. Some may have been there, and I think he preached for an hour and 20 minutes. So I'm a bit worried with a Part 1 and a Part 2 we might be going there, but because his love for this woman is great. But we will hand over to you, Frank.
Thank you, Jeff. Brings back a lot of memories. Haere mai te whānau. Nā mihi nui. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I've been speaking in public since I was a teenager 70 years ago. But I think this is probably the most difficult speech I've ever had to make. And why? Because it's about Nola. And how can I express in words who's she been to me and what she's meant? Nola has been the centre of my life and love for the past 65 years. Without her, I feel bereft. She has been with me all those years in love. We've walked side by side, usually hand in hand. She has been my greatest encourager and my most acute critic. She certainly reminded me what I needed to do. She sometimes suggested what I needed to say, and she also told me what not to say. She was there for me, loving and caring through our varying experiences of life. Nola had a kind heart for everyone, especially those who were her friends and her colleagues, and those who were suffering or hurting. She found it difficult to say a bad word about people, except for me at times. In our togetherness, she was sometimes taken outside of her comfort zone. She faced some things that were very hard to bear, but she had such courage all through life, even when she was afraid. I think especially of these past 5 months, when she knew there was no way back. After her last spell in hospital in June, she said to me, "I'm dying." but there was no bitterness, just tremendous thanks and love for the family and the wonderful people who had supported her. Nola was an amazing mother and grandmother and great-grandmother. She loved unconditionally. She strove for the very best for all of us. She was our family centre, the one around whom we gathered. Even the day before she left us, the spark of joy was still there when she saw two of her great-grandchildren, and they all loved her. For us as a family, she is irreplaceable. There will be a giant-sized space in our lives and in our togetherness. And so we want to show you a video of something, just something, of what she meant to us as a family. It was taken on her 80th birthday, some 7 years ago, and as we sat around the room, we told her some of her qualities.
Loving.
My nanny is very cool.
Nurturing.
The thread that binds.
Beautiful!
Caring.
Beautiful. Devoted.
One of a kind.
Sprightly!
Compassionate.
Loyal.
Enduring.
Gorgeous.
Warm-hearted.
Unconditionally supportive.
Inspirational and powerfully prayerful.
Welcoming.
Organised.
You're my best friend, dear. Yes, I think at the time she probably found it rather hard to believe, as she would also have found it very hard to believe the amazing array of tributes that have come from all around the country these past few days. She tended to downplay herself, and I wish she could hear some of the things people have said about her. One of the things Nola said to me, I had to say, I have been a lifelong Methodist. Even though during the past decade we have attended a Presbyterian church, and that earlier we spent a decade 24/7 living with Anglicans at St John's, yet she was Methodist through and through. Went back a long way. Her mother was from the Isle of Man, and there her family had been Methodist since John Wesley preached on a chair in Castle Rushen a long time ago. Her grandmother came to New Zealand with her family after the First World War. She lived in Brooklyn, attended the Wesley Church in Taranaki Street, and is buried at Karori. Nola was a person of deep and genuine faith. She was actively involved in the church all of her life as Sunday school teacher, youth leader, camp organiser, women's group leader, pastoral carer, study group member, choir songstress, pianist, even as a quiet and unassuming member. Yes, she expressed her faith in many ways, but it was a faith with a passion. she sat on the motorway during the Springbok tour. She fervently believed in feminist theology. Woe if you talked about God as a he, or if the words of the hymns were masculine. You were for it. She had been brought up in a working class family and had a deep feeling for those who were deprived or suffering because of the hurts and inequities of society. She was strongly committed to the bicultural movement within the Methodist Church. She was unashamedly racially inclusive. She was an early supporter of gay and lesbian rights in society and the church. Lynn Frith reminded me that when together they were selecting a new office secretary for Wesley, a traditionally feminine role, Nola asked, "Why not a young man who is gay?" And he was appointed. And then there was Nola's work ethic. I can do no better than quote the words of Mr. Barr, the managing director of Kirkaldy's, where she worked for 9 years. He said, "There is nothing I can say about Mrs. Hanson that is not in superlatives. I have worked with a number of private secretaries over the years, but no one of them would eclipse Mrs. Hanson's work, her qualities, integrity, and personality. She is an outstanding woman possessing charm and grace, and I have no reservations of any kind whatsoever in commending her to any employer who is contemplating engaging her. They will indeed be fortunate." Well, the fortunate ones were all church-related. The Anglican Family Centre, Industrial Chaplaincy, the Methodist Education Division, and the Auckland Central Mission. Well, my darling, there is much more I could say. You just keep on giving. You are an inexhaustible object for gratitude. There are some words of thanks to Jeff and John and Jim for their leadership and support. Thanks to Peter, our organist, whom Nola so loved listening to. Thanks to Robert, our undertaker, and to Craig, who's organising the live streaming. And thanks to you for this wonderful array of flowers. Nola told me once, I want plenty of flowers at my funeral. And here they are, beautiful. And what we want to ask is that after the service and a cup of tea, you come and get your flowers and you take them to an elderly person or a neighbour or someone who's sick or a friend. Thank you. Please don't leave them behind. And now I want to read one of Nola's favourite poems by W.H. Auden, or at least a bit of it. Stop all the clocks. Cut off the telephone. Prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone. Silence the pianos, and with muffled drum bring out the coffin. Let the mourners come. You are my north, my south, my east, my west, my working week and my Sunday rest, my noon, my midnight, my talk, my song. I thought that our life would last forever. I was wrong. And so, my darling, we must say farewell. We were a team, you and I, Frank and Nola and Frank. we still will be. You lived a magnificent life, and I'll miss you terribly. I've been so privileged to share this life with you. Farewell, my love. Kia kaha. Harara.
Going to. Okay. You got it? Okay.
God, I'm so proud of you, Dad. My mum was a really special person. Words can never explain what she meant to me, but I know that she knew. I was lucky enough to have her in my life for 61 years, and in that time she was able to teach me many important things about life. Not all of those things were explicitly said, but I learnt all of these things from her. Family is the most important thing in the world, and if someone hasn't kept in touch with you for a wee while, it's up to you to ring them. Mum was the glue that held our family together. Loyalty is not grey, it's black and white. Mum was fiercely loyal to the Pulse netball team, and she was not happy that some long-standing Pulse netball players have now decided to go and play for the Bay of Plenty Magic next year. Respect and accept everyone regardless of their beliefs, because we are all special. Never leave the house without matching clothes. This is something that was work in progress for Dad for some years. And Mum would often say, Frank, it doesn't go. Try this one. But I'm pleased to say that within the last week or so, Mum and I decided that he's well and truly got it sorted now. There will always be a speck of dust on the floor, and it needs vacuuming now. Never be afraid of change. It can be a good thing. When I was applying for my current job, I drove over to Rata Street School to hand in my CV. I sat there for a few minutes, and then I turned around and came back without handing it in. With perfect timing, Mum rang me and reminded me that when I changed to morning kindy, I cried, but then I loved it. When I changed to school, I cried then too, but I loved it. And that I should go back and hand in that bloomin' CV. And so I did. And she was right. It was such a good change that I've been there for more than 20 years. 100% cotton sheets are worth the money because they feel so good on your skin. Treating people fairly doesn't always mean giving exactly the same thing to each person, and nor does it mean expecting the same from them. Everyone is different. A good scone and a good coffee is all you'll ever need for lunch. You may be a daughter, a sister, a wife, a mum, a nana, a friend. You may be many things to many people, but most importantly, you are a person in your own right. Always remember that, and always feel proud of being you. You are never too old to do something new. Earlier this year, Mum and I went to some Pulse netball games, and she was on TV because she was the ball girl who delivered the ball to the Pulse team during the match game, and she was so proud of it. Flowers will always put a smile on your face, no matter what is happening in your life. Mothers are usually right. I didn't always agree with this when I was growing up, but as I got older, I realised she was absolutely right. Active listening, really listening to people, is important. If you ask questions, Clarify things and try and put yourself in others' shoes. People will know that you really care. I would tell Mum almost everything, good, bad, and everything in between. And I knew that she was always genuinely interested, and I knew that I could always trust her with everything that I said. The colour blue looks good on everyone in our family, so wear it often, because if you look good, you'll feel good too. Never take things for granted and always say thank you. Good clothes are worth the money that you pay for them, but the man that you live with doesn't always need to know the exact price. So cutting the price tag off or putting some of the cost onto Mum's credit card for clothes I bought was not uncommon. I have to say, Dad's the exception. Price tags could stay on for Dad. Family holidays are important. It's not the money that you spend on the holiday, it's the time that you spend together. We had some great holidays when we were kids. All 6 of us were squashed into the cortina, and we would play games in the car to pass the time. If things got a little bit niggly, Mum would make us play the Pollyanna game, which basically meant that every single thing that came out of our mouths had to be positive. Always have enough food to feed everyone, and then some more. But don't have lots of different things, just a few things, but have a lot of it. And talking about food, a good pavlova has to stay in the oven with the door closed until the oven is cold. If you've always wanted to do something and you get the chance to do it, you should do it and enjoy every minute. Mum encouraged us to have our one special trip to Europe. And on one Christmas day many years ago, Mum made a cheesecake. And she told us how she'd always wanted to throw one in someone's face, just like they did in the movies. A family member foolishly said, "Go for it." And so she did. And she said it felt really good. If you don't feel well, go to the doctor. On more than one occasion, Mum made a doctor's appointment for me without me knowing, came and picked me up from bed, took me to the doctor's, and yep, every time I did need antibiotics. There is a skill in flower arranging, but I don't have it. And that was one that was explicitly said. Always play by the rules, but if you get caught unfairly speeding, then write a letter so that they know that you were actually playing by the rules. Grandkids and great-grandkids are the best thing in the world. And how right she was about that. But the most important thing that Mum taught me was that when you love someone, you love them unconditionally. I always felt this unconditional love from Mum, and I saw it every day with the special bond that Mum and Dad shared. And I saw it in the way that she was with my kids and my grandkids. I've learnt so much from my mum, and I know how lucky I've been to have had such a special relationship with her. I've always felt so grateful and so very proud to call this amazing person my mum and one of my very best friends. I love you, Mum.
Thank you, Glenda. And thank you, Frank. We're now going to watch a montage put together by the grandchildren, Always and Forever. So whoever's got the buttons will push them and we'll have a look at this.
Nanny, I loved when you came and stayed with us and fitted in the back seat. And I love when we came over there and we got to see each other for a lot of times and a lot of days. We love you. I love you so much. I love Lena. I love home Taco birthday.
love you, Nanny. You're a good nanny, good grandma, and everyone loves you. We all did. Hope you had a good time here, and we'll see you soon.
Nanny, I literally don't know how to put into words how special you are to me and how much you have impacted my life. I just feel so lucky and so blessed that you have been such a huge part of my life, my whole life, even though for many of those years we weren't in the same place. I feel so lucky to have called you one of my best friends, and you were always someone that I felt like I could go to and share my life with you, and you supported me no matter what, and I'm going to miss you.
My favourite thing about Nanny was her sassiness and her great sense of humour. Even just this weekend gone by when we visited her, she was still a little bit sassy and still throwing around the jokes.
Our trips to Auckland and Tairua will always be a special part of my childhood memories. As I've grown older, they've role modelled how to be part of a loving and respectful relationship.
Nanny, you had the ability to light up a room just with your laughter and smile. And you and Gramps role modelled exactly what love and respect means in a family. And your legacy will live on for generations to come. And I've picked one final rose just for you. Love you, Nanny.
Her impact on my life is immense, and her influence in my life and the man I am today really is something of significance. So Nanny, thank you and I love you.
Nanny loved being surrounded by her family. She usually needed at least 3 prods by Gramps before she'd leave any family gathering.
My favourite moment with Nanny was one time Nanny and Gramps were looking after me when I was a kid, and we were at their house and they made me hot dogs and me and Nanny watched The Grinch together. Yeah, love you, Nanny.
Nanny made the best chocolate chip cookies, hands down. Don't argue it, it is what it is.
Nanny was full to the brim with love, generosity, curiosity and wit. She welcomed me into the amazing family that her and Gramps created together with open arms.
Nanny was such a beautiful person. She's so loving, a very, very strong woman, and she always had a hint of cheeky playfulness behind everything she did. She had this drawer about her that would pull all of us as a family together all the time. It's very, very special to be around.
So thank you, Whānau, for that. It was a bit tough to watch, wasn't it? And thank you to Rachel and Ben in Australia and Sam in America who are watching that. Our last contribution from the family is to hear a song that Philip wrote for his mother and father. I think Philip during this year, this year. And it's called Knowing You Were My Home. And it's a song to Nola and Frank, his parents. And I think it was written knowing they were getting older. And that's what Frank told me. So let's listen to it. I think the words are printed in the order of service if you want to follow them. Yeah, in there. So let's listen to the song Knowing You Were My Home.
It's been so long since I stood by your side, shared the stories of things in our lives. I haven't been there all those times when I should. To see you smile now would be just so good. Never been the one who was always around. I could drift away on a whim, but I was always happy the times I spent away, knowing you were my home. So let me hold you, and I'll try to make you see. You are the reason I am me. You never held me down. You were the wind beneath my wings. It was you, you made me who I am. I know our time now is coming to an end. The years so quickly passes by. You've been the constant in all of our lives. In every generation you shine. I can only speak for myself, tell you what's in my heart. Across the miles that keep us apart, the love I have for you never ends. Let me hold you, and I'll try to make you see. You are the reason I am me. You never held me down. You were the wind beneath my wings. It was you, you made me who I am. Let me hold you, and I'll try to make you see. You are the reason I am me. You never held me down. You were the wind beneath my wings. It was you, you made me who I am.
Thank you, Philip. Now, Frank and Nola particularly, has asked some friends to speak. And the first person is Rosemary Rushworth. So, Rosemary.
Nola, tēnā koutou katoa. I have Jeff to thank for bringing Nola into my life 40 years ago. I quickly realised how important Nola and Frank and their family were to him, and I'll be forever grateful. Nola and I instantly bonded because we were both Auckland women, married lower hut men. And there's been some gentle ribbing over the years, which is a better place to live. But I think, Nola, the fact that we both lived here for the last 23 years means that we lost that battle. I think Nola will understand if I start by beginning by acknowledging Frank. You quoted my words, Frank. It's been Nola and Frank, Frank and Nola, always. It's very hard to think of one without the other. Their relationship, their commitment to each other, to their love for their family and friends, and their care for others is just out of this world. And role models definitely springs to mind. Totally always looked up to them and their relationship. But Nola was very much her own person, as we've heard. She was a very intelligent woman, very well read. She would research. You had to be on your game with Nola. You had to make sure that you'd watch that last Q&A session on TV, or listen to the particular parliamentary debate, or watch that last netball game. Because if you hadn't, then you were really definitely behind the ball. I have to admit that I occasionally did read up quickly the netball result just to make sure I knew what I was talking about. Well, when I think of Nola, I think of her in her home. To be invited to dinner at Nola and Frank's, it was always a lovely sense of anticipation because you knew you were going to have a wonderful evening. There'd be lots of laughter. You'd be greeted at the door by Frank, always that lovely hug. Nola would be there with her beautiful smile, her warm embrace, effortlessly elegant, and there'd be a delicious dinner. She was a wonderful cook. And then there'd be the conversation, always family first. I was thinking it's that feeling you have when you, they talk now about flow, when you're in that moment where you're so enjoying what you're doing and the people that you're with that you forget about time. And that's what it was like to be sitting around that table at Nola and Frank's. The conversation would flow and hours would pass. But first of all, we would talk family. She was just, I mean, it goes without saying how immensely proud she was of her family. She just adored her children and her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Family was everything. Equally, she was interested in our family. She was always wanting to know where they were, what they're up to, and she'd remember from the last time. She would never forget. And then, unlike a lot of social occasions, religion and politics were definitely our key themes. I guess it's that lovely feeling when you're with someone whose worldview and theology values are so aligned to your own, and there's something very comforting and reassuring in that, and perhaps we did just reinforce each other's beliefs. But Nola was never complacent in what she believed in. She would always challenge herself, she would always be thinking and reading, and she would definitely change her thoughts if she felt that a particular policy or government policy was not aligned with what she thought was right. She was very much for the underdog, and for the environment. And we may very well have voted for a different party one year. But for all her attributes and many, many competencies, I think the thing that stands out for me with Nola was her ability and her willingness to be vulnerable. She had enormous empathy. And if you had Nola at the end of the phone or sitting beside you, you knew you were totally listened to. She was always just so reassuring, never judging, and then she would share her own experiences and you would feel validated. And I can honestly say that that for me was life-changing on a couple of occasions. And I'm always grateful to you, Frank, that I had the opportunity on Sunday to be able to say to her how much that meant to me. And I'm not alone in the kindness that Nola imparted to people. I mean, that was just her through and through. So Frank, we're still going to have those coffees and those conversations, and we know absolutely that Nola's going to be at the forefront, just gently nudging us to make sure we're staying on track. So goodbye, Nola. Thank you for coming into my life. Sure.
Thanks, Rosemary. Jean Gordon Parr. Next friends.
Before Jean starts, I'd just like to say I think Nola would be pleased to see Jean leading and me being quiet.
I think I'll take this off. Gordon and I were very moved to be invited by Frank to give our tribute to Nola. We have created this response together, and Gordon did ask me to read it to you. It seems appropriate to begin at the beginning and outline the links on how we became friends. I call them our New Zealand lifelong friends. In 1975, Gordon and I and Ian and Andrew emigrated from Liverpool, UK, to Wellington, New Zealand. We arrived on a Friday after a very long haul journey. On Sunday, somehow we found our way to the Methodist Church in Taranaki Street. There we found ourselves being asked by the people sitting next to us, "Are you new to the church?" On answering yes, much to their surprise, we were the first people who had ever said yes. They were from Guernsey and had been in New Zealand for some time. They too became New Zealand lifelong friends, and Nola and Frank have met them on a few occasions. They introduced us to the minister, Jack Penman, with whom they were good friends. What has this to do with Nola? Well, unbeknown to us, the Methodist church we belonged to in Liverpool knew we were travelling to Wellington, New Zealand, and forwarded our church membership. After a month living in a motel, we moved out to Belmont Lower Hutt. One day, there was a knock at the door, and there was Frank. "I'm the minister of Langs Road Methodist Church, and your membership has just been forwarded on to me." Oh, how did that happen? Didn't know our membership was going to be forwarded on. It was a while before we were able to attend Langs Road, and on arrival we soon met with Nola, who invited us all to their home. There we discovered other links that brought us together. Nola's mum was from Liverpool. Gordon is from Liverpool, and I have extended family in Liverpool. Then we discovered her Uncle Steve was from the Isle of Man, a favourite place of ours and where we had our honeymoon. When Nola and Frank went on sabbatical, we gave the address of friends of ours who had a cottage in Colby on the island, and not far from where Nola's family live. Nola was proud of her Manx blood. On one of Gordon's visits to the op shops, he found a souvenir plate for the Isle of Man, costing $1. That was not a fitting place. It needed a loving home, and duly he presented it to Nola. When house groups were encouraged, Nola and Frank attended our group. There we learnt of Nola's many interests, and many obviously being outlined today. People, social justice, she marched against the Springbok tour, liberation theology, politics, and feminism, to mention a few. Gordon frequently got in discussion on the latter, and sometimes he left duly chastened. Imagine that, can't you? Nola was a great hostess and a splendid cook. We shared many meals together. We were invited to stay with Nola, Frank and Mark when they moved to Auckland. And they also invited us to visit whenever visiting our friends previously mentioned from Taranaki Street, who also left to move and go to Auckland. Everybody seemed to be leaving us. On one occasion, we visited with my mum and dad out from the UK. Unbeknown to us, Frank was about to take off on a trip and was packing his bag. I don't know where you were going. No bother, says Nola, and ordered, "Welcome, come in," and out came the china and the nibbles. And we had a splendid time together. While in Auckland, Nola and Frank took up square dancing, so Gordon thought we would learn to square dance too, for when they returned to the hut. We were quite confident that he'd perhaps come back. We were out of their league, so stayed in the beginners group. But it was a really good connection. As a further talent of Nola's came to the fore, sewing beautiful skirts for herself and matching ties for Frank. Gordon and I started to take up walking, maybe / tramping. Nola was keen on keeping fit and enjoyed the countryside and was keen to get involved. With her usual enthusiasm, she and Frank, also enthusiastic about it all, started training, and we enjoyed several farm walks together spanning several days, and that was really a wonderful time when we were together. 9 years ago, Gordon and I were to celebrate our golden wedding anniversary. I was receiving chemo at the time, and so unbeknown to me, Gordon asked Nola for advice on hiring a caterer and suggestions of food for afternoon tea. Dear Nola came back and said that she would host the get-together, and Jenny, Glenda and Keith, I think they were there washing up, had generously offered to assist with the catering. Thank you for a delicious afternoon tea. I did know something was up, but was incredibly surprised and delighted to see people who had travelled some distance to be with us. A few weeks ago, when Nola was becoming weaker and hospice had just become involved, we had arranged with Frank to visit. On arrival, said she was very tired. We, of course, did not stay. However, we were just getting in the car when he came and said, "Nola would like to see you for a brief visit." You nodded. Although in bed, it was pleasing to see her so comfortable, receiving continuous oxygen through little prongs in her nose, and bright-eyed. We sat with her and talked about the times we had together And then we ventured into the latest programmes enjoyed on TV and current affairs, and always the latest New Zealand political events. We indicated we had better leave. "Oh no," said Nola, "you can't leave now," and turned to Frank and said, "I feel energised." How many times over the years has Nola expressed how energised she is by being with people? Our last time together was to share lunch to celebrate Nola and Frank's, I've got 62nd wedding anniversary here.
Close enough.
Close enough. Nola was sitting comfortably in the conservatory, dressed, and looked lovely and relaxed, still using the oxygen you could hardly see. She tucked into an asparagus roll. I thought she would only eat half. Little savoury tarts and a generous piece of flan containing custard and a generous helping of strawberries. The flan was bought from Janice, yes, one of their favourite places, and there was at least a punnet of strawberries on the top, so you can imagine how many there were on a piece. We put the world to rights as usual, then spoke of the travel documentaries we'd been watching. With great conviction, Nola said Levison Wood was her absolute favourite, because he was so good with the many people he met on his journeys, many living in very challenging circumstances. Nola too was good with people. Likewise was loved and cherished by many people. Someone who has given so much to others as Nola did has lived a wonderful life. Nola, you have left us with many memories. Nola, love never dies, and our love for you will never die. Thank you.
I think the 3 extra years, Jean, was the courting years, weren't they, Frank? The 65 years. You weren't allowed to marry when you were at college. Some of us just did it. So the last tribute I'm reading, and great old friend, great old friend, not an old person. Yes, she is, Frank said. Elizabeth, did you hear that? This comes from Elizabeth Clark. And Murray and Elizabeth have been friends of Frank and Nola's for many years. And Elizabeth wrote this, and I'm reading it on her behalf. And she heads it, a wonderful woman of faith and friend. Thank you for including an old friend of Nola's into her special service. Nola would not like the word old, of course not, just meaning we knew each other and were friends for 55 years. From early days when we both lived in Stoke, to many years and experiences later, with me now living in Nelson, we communicated regularly. So many memories, from sharing preschoolers on the beach to making curtains for the parsonage. Nola was a wonderful, forward-thinking, liberated woman who was always genuinely interested in my activities, career and family. Hence the long, frequent telephone conversations. Yes, everyone knew when Nola and I were catching up, please do not disturb. She was always ready for new thoughts and ideas, whether it was about theology, education, being a mother, wife, grandmother, etc. I found her a very good listener who did not interrupt or compete with my conversation on news. How refreshing. Even last week when we had a chat, she did not want to talk about herself, of course not, but remembered to ask by name about my children and grandchildren. I finish by quoting what my daughter has added to my memories. When I think of Nola, I always think of the way she greeted me. It was always with my name and a big smile. She was pleased to see me, and I think she gave everyone this impression. She was always interested in people and was keen to know how life was with you. She loved people and she made people feel loved. She was one of the saints. So thank you, Nola, for being part of our lives. So I'm sure, like me, the rememberings have all brought some memories to the fore for you. And so we're just going to spend a little bit of time in silence as Peter's going to play some of Nola's favourite music. So that kind of silence, we won't speak, but we will sit and remember what Nola meant for us personally. So thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. And Frank, I can just hear Nola in the car after being at St Andrews saying, I really enjoyed that piece of music. So, let us now move to a time of our pastoral thoughts. And if prayer is your discipline, you may pray, you may just want to listen to my words. So let us now remember and pray together. Today we have come together to remember with great love Nola Hanson, who has died. As we gather, we seek comfort and support from each other as we start and try to come to terms with the reality that Nola, the person, is no longer among us. That causes us much pain and grief. But I believe Nola would not want that to overwhelm us, but to remember her with love and laughter and courage. We each had our own unique relationship with Nola. For Frank, as we heard, Nola was a much-loved wife for 62 years and friend for 65. A marriage marked by respect and friendship as best friends, constant companions, as parents to their much-loved children, Nanny and Grunts, to their grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Together they were theologians, political commentators, social change agents, dance partners, and friends to many. For Glenda, Philip, Jenny and Mark, Nola was their mum. And today they celebrate the love, encouragement and guidance which Nola gave them, and the love, the unconditional love she gave them, and the knowledge that she was just so proud of each of them. For Keith, Louise, Richard and Jenny, Nola was a mother-in-law who was their friend. For Rachel and Ben, Matthew and Alice, Ben, Adam, Sam, Luke and Paige, they are Nanny's treasured and adored grandchildren. They celebrate that they have experienced the most pure love and care from someone who adored them. From the moment of your birth into your adult years, you were sheer pleasure to Nola. And for Sophie and Joshua, Georgia and Rita and Olive, you were the light of her every day over the past few years and months. And as Rosemary and I said goodbye to Nola on Sunday, just hours before she died, she told us that they brought her pure joy. Nola loved Frank and her family first and foremost, but as we know, Nola had an outstanding ability to love and care. Nola was an open, liberal and inclusive person. She will forever be remembered by those who loved her. She has eternal life. But as we must say farewell to her today, we pray that we do have the wisdom and courage to grieve, to weep and to laugh as we remember her. But that we also continue to live the life we have, to rebuild our lives with the strength and the love that Nola shared with us. Nola would have wanted that. So over the days and months ahead, as we remember and grieve Nola's death, may we share the courage we have when we have it, the pain when we feel it, being there for each other, so that we can confidently carry on living our lives together. Nola would have expected nothing less. Amen. We now move to the commendation, so please stand. I think we're going to switch on the mic. None of us know what lies beyond the grave. Some of us believe there is a life beyond this life, an encounter with the loving God. In his letter to the church at Corinth, Paul says that it is as different from this life as a fully grown plant is from a seed from which it grew. Some of us believe that this life is all we have, and that we are called to live this life as fully as possible, fully human, fully alive to God's purposes. Some of us would say that beyond death is mystery, and that God is at the depth of the mystery of life. But whatever we believe about life beyond death, we can all know this: Nola is at peace. She is at peace from the troubles and stresses of the world. She is at peace with us. She is at peace with God. Nola's ashes will one day return to the earth, there to re-enter the great cycle of nature. But Nola's spirit will live on in those of us she has influenced and cared for through her living and her loving. We will remember not just for the events of her life and what she did, but we'll remember her for the person she was. A woman of spirit and integrity, of compassion and self-giving, and friendliness and empathy, of strong ideals and inclusive understanding, but above all of unconditional love for church and family and friends. Those and all the other qualities by which we describe her will be remembered for generations to come. So we release Nola's body to the act of cremation, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and we commend her spirit to God and those who chose to be the keepers of her memory. Farewell, dear Nola. Though you will no longer be with us, you are still a vital part of our lives. Amen. We're now going to sing the song Give Thanks for Life, another choice of Nola's. And Nola knew and was a friend with Shirley Murray, who wrote this hymn. So let's sing it together. Give thanks for life. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Amen. Thank you, John.
Mā ihoa tātou e manaki. Mana tātou e tiaki. Mā ihoa e mea ki te aho, te maramatanga o ona kanohi, ki runga ki a tātou. Mana ano e tuku iho, te rani mārie, ki a tātou. Aia nei a ke tono atu. Ki a tau, ki a tātou katoa, ki a te whai o tō tātou ariki i koraiti, ki aroharo ti atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairo tapu, a ke tono atu. Amen.